Hey everybody, my name is Nate Winters, the Director of Sales and Certified Sommelier here at Troon Vineyard and Farm. Today we find ourselves in the cellar with.
Nate Wall, winemaker.
And Michael Wagner, assistant winemaker.
This is pretty cool to be able to talk about one of our favorite wines and how it's made kind of in front of some of the vessels that influence it. Obviously we're in the cellar, we have these giant concrete tanks. Tanks maybe not be the right word, vessel for them. We have four of these, and this past vintage was the first time we got to actually use all four of them. During the replant, we have a good amount of crop and quantity recently that we can fulfill all these vessels that some of them are laid empty, like Vermentino, we got to fill one of them and use. But what I'm getting at is today we want to talk to you about the Syrah that we make, and this is our 2023 vintage. And a portion of this Syrah was fermented and aged in concrete, and we'll get into kind of how that results on the finished wine. This is one of my favorite wines we make every year. It's one of the most popular that I sell across the country from restaurants. I think a sommelier's wine is Syrah. A lot of mainstream, a lot of retail bottle shops don't often have Syrah in the conversation of mainstream wines like they do Cabernet or Pinot Noir.
Such a shame.
And it's a shame. I think restaurants is the perfect place to be able to show someone the left and right limits, the versatility of how Syrah can be expressed and made. And for me, this kind of hits all of the bells and whistles in my mind when I smell it, when I taste it, of what I love from the coveted region of the Rhone when they make Syrah. The Rhone is known for a lot of different expressions and a lot of different grapes. When you think of the northern part of the Rhone on those granite slopes and how they grow Syrah, there's a few different expressions that you can get from Saint Joseph to Côte Rôtie and Cornas. And I think what we do here at Troon does the best job at taking the best parts of all those regions and putting them in a wine. I'm trying not to be biased, but I think that the way that we can make wine, the way that you guys express the vineyard through this grape specifically just speaks to me. So maybe you guys can speak a little bit about Syrah.
Yeah, we were chatting with Syrah the other day, and I mentioned that Syrah is like a victim of its own success because it is very versatile and adaptable. And so it can adapt to all these different climates and produce very different wines from each of those regions. But where we believe that Syrah is native to is the Northern Rhone, which is actually a cooler region, very similar climatically to the Applegate Valley. So, I sometimes have difficulty. We're either a very warm, cool climate or a very cool, warm climate here, especially because of our diurnal temperature variation. We can have warm days but then very cool nights here. All that goes into the fact that the way Syrah on our property grows is very much in line with where it evolved originally, right? And so I think while Syrah can be successful at a lot of other places, I really feel that it only unveils its soul when grown in these kind of cooler areas. And so that's what you get here. That's why we have 4 different clones of Syrah planted throughout our property, because Syrah is the variety that I think just best translates what Troon is to the bottle, right? If you just had to pick one grape variety for our site, it would be how Syrah can just absorb everything that is Troon and then make it to the bottle. So this Syrah actually in 2023, it's a blend of 3 of the different clones we have. So 50% of it is clone 470, and that clone 470 was fermented and aged right here in this concrete fermenter. So it was 100% fermented and aged, that portion, in this concrete. 470 is a Northern Rhone, it's from the Northern Rhone, and it always has a blue fruity character, a little bit of that spicy pepperiness. And so I love that component in here. Has about 33% of 174 Syrah, which is just about 2 blocks that way if we walk out of the winery. But 174 it's a very Grenache like Syrah. So when we do blends with Syrah and Grenache together, I immediately go to 174 to start playing around with that because it is more red fruited and just is the most, I guess, obvious pairing with Grenache. They just really hold hands well. But it also though brings some unique elements, especially texturally. 174 seems to be a richer mid palate grape. And so, yeah, that's a nice component here. And then finally, this has about 17% of Joseph Phelps clone. And on our site, that is our kind of earliest ripening, like inky black, most concentrated Syrah, I would say, that we have on our property. And so, 17% getting some of that intensity in there, but not so much as to overwhelm the others is kind of where we went with in 2023. And then the other thing, you can't have a conversation with Syrah without talking about whole cluster, because like I would say of all of the grapes, like Pinot Noir and Syrah just really interact with whole cluster in the most like unique ways. And with Syrah, so we use a variety of different percent whole clusters for different ferments, ranging from some destemmed, but all the way up to, I think we had a 75% whole cluster on one of the lots of one of the clones this year in 2023. So yeah, you have a lot of other textures and flavors, aromatics that come with that. The whole cluster also, seems to help keep the wine like more youthful longer. So, a 2023 wine, it's not that it's old, but like it's very vibrant and young. And as it ages, it will keep that vibrancy. That's part of what that freshness, that whole cluster, I think really helps to like kind of uplift and protect. So that's it also adds interesting kind of herbal elements, which kind of correspond nicely with the fruit, right? So this is far from one-dimensional. You would think maybe a 100% varietal might, varietal wine, might be tend towards a little bit of one-dimensionality just because it's only one thing. But I mean, not this wine, and not with these different clones of Syrah, and not Syrah from our property, right? It really has so many layers to it, and part of that also comes from the whole cluster.
Yeah, so going off that, I mean, again, the bottle just says Syrah, right? But there's obviously a lot of intention and kind of various projects going on our site, because just even before we get the grapes in, right, you're playing with different clones, and Nate's assessing year to year how much whole cluster he wants to use. And then I don't know what day we are on the biodynamic calendar, but it's like, this is tasting amazing right now, and you can really taste all these different layers of what happened during fermentation and aging. So again, whole cluster, we have an all used oak program for what goes into barrel, and then concrete. And so that blended with 3 different clones is really cool to see in the glass now and taste, because I'm getting like crunchy red fruit and purple and blue fruit. He was mentioning kind of that savory element. It's like I get a lot of different herbs, and then also kind of floral from Syrah always. Sometimes this grape can be a little bit reductive, but I feel like this is really just like beautiful, opened up today. We were just discussing before, the weather's really nice, so I mean, I feel like a lamb burger right now would be amazing with the sunshine we have with a glass of this. It's definitely a very complex wine, and there's so much work behind the little Syrah on the label, but I think this is a really balanced version of like what we can do with Syrah on our property.
Yeah, I was saying, talking beforehand too, if you were to blind taste this wine, like I think it just shows nothing but Syrah and all of the sides of them. Sometimes Malbec and Syrah, for me personally, can do a little dance that confuses me, but for this specific wine, like you get those blue fruits, you get the violets, you get olive, you get like underripe blackberry, you get all those different kinds of points that you're hitting that's known for Syrah. The acidity is just perfect to keep it alive. It's 12.9 on the alcohol. So again, reaching this kind of complexity at a lower or medium to low alcohol, I think is really impressive for me. It gives a full mouth feel without being too abrasive. The tannins are lovely. And all of this, I think, will age really nicely. You'll get all the tired, underripe kind of components going to a more fresher and ripe kind of like cohesive mouthfeel. Yeah, a lovely wine. Do you guys, I could talk about this wine all day, but is there anything you want to wrap this up with, or think we covered some of it? And if you have any questions, always reach out to us about any specific wine. Of course, when you scan the QR code, you get this video, but you can also have a lot more information that they typed up for you as well. But yeah, look forward to Syrah being made each year and how we refine these younger vines into older vines. The color of this wine, it's like true Syrah, and makes me very happy. So this is our 2023 vintage. We hope you get your hands on it. There's a good little bit amount left. We should be bottling the next 24 this year, so not too far out, but lovely wine. We hope you share with your friends and family, and thank you for listening again.